Hi there, my name's Caitlin Bandy and this is my channel BandysBooks, and today we are here to talk about the books that are releasing in April that I am very excited about. Now, of course, this is not a comprehensive list of all of the books that are releasing in April. These are just the 13 that I am the most excited to read. There are some really good books coming out, and yeah, I feel like this is gonna be a month that's dangerous for my TBR. So if you're like me and you have a book buying problem, hit that like button down below, and then let's go ahead and just jump right in with the first book. So we're gonna start with books that were releasing on the 4th of April. I know that when this video posts, these books will already be published, but regardless, I'm still excited about them anyways, and they'll still be new and fresh and shiny. So the first book we're gonna be talking about today is Before We Were Innocent by Ella Berman. I was sent an ARC copy of this by Berkeley, and I'm really excited to dive into this. This is right up my alley. This currently has a 4.07 rating on Goodreads with about 173 reviews so far. We have a story that focuses on Joni and Bess. 10 years ago, Joni and Bess were in Greece with their best friend Evangeline for the summer, and Evangeline dies. Joni and Bess both get accused of the murder, although they are eventually acquitted. When they get home, Joni and Bess each handle the situation differently. Joni really leans into the infamy, and Bess just wants a quiet life away from the camera and away from the memories of her friend's murder. Fast forward to 10 years in the future, and Joni is embroiled in a situation that's strikingly similar to the previous one. And she reaches out to Bess and asks her to come support her, wants her to head back to Los Angeles and give her moral support for what she's going through. Except this time, Bess has questions about the situation. So this is gonna be a thriller. It's gonna explore the dynamics between friends, murder mystery. I think it's a bunch of things that I really love. I am very excited to read this, and I will be getting into it very soon. The next book on my list is Camp Zero by Michelle Min-Sterling. I actually have a copy of this headed to my house in my Book of the Month box. This was one of their main selections, and this sounds really interesting. This currently sits on Goodreads with a 3.54 and about 390 reviews or so. Interesting to see that this rating isn't that high, because I feel like Book of the Month usually picks pretty solid books. This book is set in a remote northern settlement, and we have a character named Rose, who is a young woman doing everything she can to try to protect and support her mother, who's a Korean immigrant. She basically makes a deal where she is going to spy on the architect of Camp Zero in return for housing that will make her and her mother's futures a bit more secure. Rose meets a new college professor named Grant, and he's fleeing from his own dark legacy. Together, they come to realize that the camp architect is tied up in a disturbing mystery. Sounds really interesting to me. I've heard so far, based on the reviews, that this is kind of a tale of two halves, that one half of the book is really interesting and one half drags a little bit. I will be seeing for myself soon, as like I said, my book should be arriving any day now. And then we have Cursed Bread by Sophie McIntosh. This has about a 3.51 and about 562 reviews so far on Goodreads. This is loosely based on the 1951 mass poisoning of a French village. This is an actual real event, and I think it's kind of inspiring the story, although I don't know that it goes into great detail within the story. This is going to follow a character named Elodie, who is the baker's wife and maybe is responsible for this cursed bread. She wants to transcend her dull, boring existence, and when a new ambassador and his wife Violet arrives to town, Elodie quickly becomes obsessed and drawn into their orbit. I think this is going to be kind of dark, comedic. I know that there is some sexual content involved in this book. I've heard really mixed reviews for this book, but it is getting some award hype too, so we'll have to read it and see for ourselves. Now on to the books that are releasing on the 18th of April. Our first book releasing on the 18th is Greek Lessons by Han Kang. This has a 3.66 and about 352 ratings on Goodreads so far. Now, if you've been following me for the last month or so, you will know that I read The Vegetarian by Han Kang and loved it. I just finished it like maybe 3 weeks ago, and for me, it was such a striking and interesting book. I feel like the more that I think about it, the more different things I can envision this book having meant and signified, and like all of the subtle things that were slipped in different parts of the text. So I am stoked to read another book by Han Kang. I'm hoping that Greek Lessons is going to be equally as moving and impactful. It's set in Seoul, Korea, and we have a young woman who is taking Greek lessons. As she watches her Greek professor writing on the board and teaching his lessons, she's transfixed. She wants to speak, but she can't find her voice. And this professor finds himself drawn to this mute student, and relates to her as he loses his own sight. Soon they find that they are bonded by a deeper pain. I think that if I know anything about Han Kang's writing, it won't be quite as simple as it's described. I expect that this is going to have a lot to say about society and life, and I'm really interested to delve into this. This is maybe my most anticipated of the 13 books. Then we have The 5 Sorrowful Mysteries of Anti-Africa by Stephen Burrow. This currently has a 3.98 rating and about 56 reviews so far on Goodreads. This book follows a young boy named Andrew. He's about 15 years old and he's living in northern Nigeria. He does live with his very severe and strict mother, and he spends a lot of time hanging out with his friends Slim and Maraka. Andy's world is shooken up when he ends up falling in love with the first white girl that he's ever seen. When an anti-Christian mob heads for his church, Andy is going to be forced to reckon with his desires and his identity. This, I think, is going to be like a tragicomedy sort of a book. I have a feeling that it's going to be kind of humorous and eccentric and quirky, just based on the vibe of the book. I'm really looking forward to getting into this, and it sounds like a really interesting plot. After that, we have an entry into the horror category, and that's The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro. Currently sits at a 3.71 with about 410 reviews so far. Alejandra no longer knows who she is. She's struggling with darkness and being haunted by visions of La Llorona. When she reaches out to a therapist to try to find some help and some relief from these visions, she ends up finding that many generations of the women in her family have been similarly haunted by visions of La Llorona. I'm here for this. I love this gothic horror inspired by Mexican folklore. I grew up on the Mexican border, and so I grew up hearing tales of La Llorona, El Cucuy, all of these different Mexican folkloric tales. And so I'm really enjoying seeing them mixed into contemporary horror and contemporary fiction. So much fun. I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. After that, we have The Last Animal by Ramona Ausubel. This book is currently rated at a 4.18 with about 17 reviews so far. This book sounds like so much fun. It's got such a quirky description and it's such an interesting subject matter. I think this is going to be a sleeper pick. It hasn't got a lot of hype going into the month, but I think a lot of people are going to read this and enjoy it. We have Jane, who's a scientist, and she is working to de-extinct the woolly mammoths. And so she has been sent to Siberia to search for woolly mammoth DNA. She has 2 teenage daughters who she's had to bring along with her. And while they're there in Siberia, as they're playing and exploring, the 2 teens accidentally find a 4,000-year-old woolly mammoth carcass. This sets off a chain reaction in the science world that leads to their mother going rogue and the whole family popping from various locations around the world in an effort to pursue their scientific research. This sounds amazing. There's like 4 or 5 different countries that this book takes place in. I love it just for the travel aspect of it, but I think the concept of de-extincting animals, the scientific research, all of that stuff is going to be really good fun. I expect that there's going to be humor elements, some family drama. I'm really looking forward to this one. And then we have Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. This currently sits at a 4.17 with 78 reviews on Goodreads. This book follows a young native girl named Anna who is always looking over her shoulder. She's watching her back for bullies. She's watching her back for the entitled casino guests that she has to deal with. And she's watching her back for the entity that is constantly stalking her. When scary things start to happen on the reservation and girls start going missing, including Anna's own sister, Anna is convinced that the answer lies in the tribal past. This is a book that I've seen a lot of buzz about. I know that last month when people were making predictions for Book of the Month, this was a book that got tossed around quite a bit. It wasn't, but it's still receiving pretty good feedback and hype, and I am very much looking forward to getting into it. I'm here for all of the horror stories that have been popping up lately, loving this like gothic, creepy horror, especially with cultural elements involved. I can't wait to get into it. And finally, the books that are dropping on the 25th of April. There are quite a few of them, and I'm very excited because they all look to be really good. First up, we have Ghost Girl Banana by Wiz Wharton. This currently has a 4.24 and about 84 reviews so far on Goodreads. This book takes place between 2 different timelines. It's set between 1966 and 1997. In 1966, Sukyin is exiled from Kowloon to London in an attempt to restore her family's honor. 30 years later, her biracial child, Lily, is struggling with the loss of her mother, struggling with her identity, and not knowing who she is really. And so she sets off on a secret pilgrimage across the world to figure out exactly who she is. This book sounds so good. I honestly was first drawn to this book by the title just because it sounded so interesting. I didn't know what to expect. And then when I started reading the description, I was like, oh man, this is historical fiction. This is right up my alley. And it's about a couple moments in time that I'm not super familiar with. Then we have The Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. This currently has a 3.91 and about 432 reviews on Goodreads. This is a debut novel about a true crime obsessed bookseller with a deep and dark obsession. When Roach meets Laura, who is a children's bookseller, Roach realizes she's finally done it. She's finally met someone who is a part of a real life true crime situation. And her obsession with Laura quickly turns dark. This sounds like it's going to be kind of a comedy, a thriller, like a whole bunch going on, and I'm looking forward to it. Plus the cover on this book is really cool. Then we have The Eden Test by Adam Sternberg. This currently has a 3.85 and about 243 reviews so far on Goodreads. This book follows a couple that's on the verge of separation. We have one partner who's had an affair, another partner who has their own buried secrets. And collectively, they've signed up for a week-long getaway called The Eden Test that is designed to help couples that are going through troubled times. As the lies and revelations pile up, the week turns into more than this particular couple has bargained for. I love a thriller. I love domestic thrillers. I enjoy the idea of a couple who is pretty much already decided to separate and like trying to make this last ditch effort. I will be interested to see how this concept is handled. I think it could go either really well or really bad. After that, we have Ascension by Nicholas Binge. Currently has a 4.32 with 158 reviews on Goodreads. So this is the book to me that sounds both the strangest and one that I'm like super excited to read. We have a massive mountain that suddenly appears in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And Harold is a scientist who studies mysterious phenomenon. He gets a team together and they head out to go climb this mountain and do some research, find out what it's all about. The higher up the mountain that the team ascends, the weirder that things get. Time starts to move differently, the climbers' limbs are going numb, their memories are fading, and paranoia is starting to turn to violence. Not only that, but they're also being pursued by slithering ancient creatures as they go up this mountain. This book sounds so bizarre to me, but like in the way where I think I'm really gonna love it. I feel like when an author comes in with such an unusual idea, you've got to come in with the writing chops to back it. And I feel like this could turn into a really spectacular read. And the final book on my list is a book that has received more hype than probably any other book on this list, and is one that I'm also very much looking forward to reading. It's by one of my favorite authors, and that's In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This currently has a 4.26 and about 1,173 ratings on Goodreads. That's very good feedback so far. So this book follows a character named Geo, who is the only human in a family of androids. They live deep in a forest away from society, and Geo is protected by his android father. One day, Geo is captured and transported to a laboratory in the city of Electric Dreams, and it'll be up to Geo's android family to come and rescue him. While that's going on, Geo must decide if he can accept love with strings attached. If you're familiar with TJ Klune's writing, you'll know that this is likely to have an emotional impact. I'm expecting some warm fuzzies from this. I'm not usually too hyped about warm fuzzy types of books because, let's face it, I have a heart of ice and I like to read depressing things. But this is like one of those rare authors where I really enjoy the way that he writes warm fuzzies. And so I'm expecting to love this. I hope it's going to live up to the hype that is being created around it and the hype that's in my head. The House in the Cerulean Sea is one of my favorite warm fuzzy books. And I also really loved Under the Whispering Door. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a hit as well. That said, those are the 13 books that are releasing in April that I'm really looking forward to. I hope that some of the books on the list sounded interesting to you and that maybe you've added a couple things to your TBR. And if you did, you know what to do. Hit the thumbs up button and comment down below. Which of these books are you most excited for? Or are there other books releasing that I didn't mention that you're really excited about? And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below, as well as the notification bell so that you never miss a video, and then we can see each other again soon. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.